In this video, we'll go over the concepts found in Grammar 2I. These concepts include plural nouns, interjections, to, and to, and sentence diagramming. First, we're going to go into plural nouns. So we're going to read through each of these rules and have an example afterward. So our first rule is, for most nouns, add s to make it plural. So our example on this page is shoe would become shoes. Now we're going to look at it in a sentence. We have I want the balloon, which would become I want the balloons, which would have an s added to balloon to make it plural. Next we have, for a word that ends with ch, sh, x, z, or s, add es. So we have shown watch and pass would become watches and passes. So our example is, she drove past a church would become she drove past churches, adding es to the end because church ends in ch. Our next rule is for words that end in f, ff, or ffe, add an s. So our example is chef and giraffe would become chefs and giraffes. So our example in a sentence would be he saw the reef would become he saw the reefs. You're just adding an s to the end, similar to that first rule. Now we're going to look at, for some words that end in f, change the f to a v and add es. So our examples shown here are half and leaf would become halves and leaves. So we have the sentence, they buy a loaf would become they buy loaves. Notice that f has turned into a v and es has been added to the end. And then our last rule is going to be for words that end in ife, change the f to a v and then add s. So our examples here are wife and knife, and that would become wives and knives. We're actually going to use knife in our example sentence. So we have you use a knife, and then that would become you use knives. Notice that the v replaces the f, and we're adding s to the end. Now we're going to look at an interjection. An interjection is a word used to show emotion and stand separately from the other sentences. So let's look at an example. We have, whoa, that jet is fast. And so in this, you can see that we have capitalized the W in whoa, and we have put an exclamation point at the end. An interjection is kind of like a weird standalone sentence that doesn't have a subject and a verb. It always ends in an exclamation point and will always have that capital letter. Next, we're going to go over the difference between to, and to. So here we're going to look at the rules. To is a connecting word used to describe how, why, or where. Our example here is, I'm going to school. It's telling you where he is going or she is going. To with two O's is an adverb that can mean overly or also. Our examples are, it's too cold outside and may I come too? Notice that with it's too cold today, it can kind of be easy to remember that it has two O's compared to the TO of the previous rule because it's overly, so it's much more than just cold, and so you need one more O to add to the word if you forget the difference between the two. And our last rule is TWO. Two is the word form of the number 2. I have 2 pencils is the example. So now we're going to look at another set of examples. This first one is, I went to the movies, using the word TO. And so that is showing you where I am going. Next we have, I had too much popcorn. And so we're using TOO to show that it was much more than just a little popcorn. It was over amount. And then our last sentence is, I bought 2 candies. And TWO is used to show the amount bought. Our last concept is sentence diagramming. Our structure is as shown. We have our subject on the baseline with the verb phrase following it, and those two are separated by a vertical line. And it does say verb phrase because sometimes a verb phrase will contain more than one word, like the future tense. And then always connect the articles and adjectives that describe a subject or any noun in a sentence by diagonally connecting them to that word. So let's look at an example. We have the young bird will fly. Let's set up our little structure. And we're going to want to put the subject down first. So we have bird on that first part of the baseline. And we do have two words describing bird, so we will fill in those diagonal lines connected to the subject, and that would be the and young. And then we need to put our verb in the appropriate place, which would be on the baseline after the vertical line. And remember, will and fly are both part of the verb phrase, so that's why both of the words are going onto that line. If you have any questions or concerns about this book, please contact the person who grades your grammar at the center.